President Trump's plan to take Greenland. President Trump saying, quote, "There is no going back." The stock market plunging 870 points today over the president's insistence that he will take Greenland and will impose tariffs against NATO allies who don't support him.
Donald Trump says he has agreed a framework for a deal over Greenland and is walking back his threats to impose tariffs.
President Donald Trump says that a deal is in sight to end the dispute over Greenland. The US president also seemed to back down from his threats to take over Greenland by force and impose tariffs on allies.
Today's biggest US and world news revolves around a major shift in President Trump's stance on a serious trade conflict that threatened to shake global markets and relations with key allies. Just a few days ago, there was growing fear that the United States was preparing to impose new tariffs, essentially taxes on imported goods, on several European countries unless they agreed to US demands over the Arctic territory of Greenland. That threat alone sent markets into a tailspin, with stocks falling and investors worried about a potential trade war. But today, in a surprising move at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, President Trump stepped back from that threat. He announced that he had reached what he called a framework for a future deal involving Greenland and the broader Arctic region after meeting with NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte. Because of this, he said he would not go ahead with the planned tariffs that were supposed to start on February 1st. This shift is huge for several reasons. First, it has calmed many investors. Wall Street responded strongly right after the announcement, with major US stock indexes, including the S&P 500, Dow Jones, and Nasdaq, ending higher for the day. That kind of rebound shows how sensitive markets have become to international relations and trade policy. That ripple effect shows how interconnected the world economy is. When the United States changes course on a major policy, the impact is felt far beyond America's borders. President Trump described the meeting at Davos as productive and said that the so-called framework deal would benefit not just the United States, but also NATO allies. He wrote on his social media platform that they had formed an outline of an agreement, though he didn't provide many details about what exactly that deal will include. It's important to understand why Greenland has become a focus of US policy. Greenland is a large island in the Arctic with huge strategic value. It sits close to key military and shipping routes and has rich natural resources. Because of this, US officials have long shown interest in Arctic security, especially as Russia and China increase their military and economic presence in the region. Trump has argued that the United States needs a stronger role in Arctic defense, and that was part of the reason he tried to use tariffs as leverage in negotiations. The announcement that tariffs have been put on hold helped ease fears that the United States was heading toward a full-blown trade conflict with longtime allies like Denmark, France, Germany, and others. Those countries had been targeted in the planned tariffs because they opposed the US push regarding Greenland. But now, with the tariffs off the table for the moment, tension among these allies has been reduced. It's worth noting that while the United States says a framework deal has been agreed, details are still scarce. Several European officials have made clear that they do not agree with transferring control of Greenland to the United States, and Denmark has insisted that Greenland is not for sale. The framework may instead involve cooperation on Arctic security issues and working together on shared challenges in the region. Another important point is that Trump also said the United States would not use military force to take control of Greenland, a comment that was included in his remarks at Davos. That helped reduce some of the alarm that had spread internationally, because any talk of force, even in the past, raised fears of serious conflict. So what does this mean for ordinary Americans? First, the cancellation of tariffs for now helps keep prices stable on goods that might have become more expensive if trade conflicts had worsened. Tariffs often raise costs for consumers because they increase the price of imported products. Second, calming international tensions helps US businesses because uncertainty makes companies less likely to invest or expand. Third, global markets tend to respond positively to reduced risk, which can support retirement accounts, pensions, and overall economic confidence. For people in Europe and NATO countries, this development is also important. It shows that diplomacy and negotiation can still play a role in international disputes. It sends a message that even strong differences between countries can be managed without immediately resorting to economic punishment or tariffs. That matters because Europe and the United States have been close partners for decades on issues of security, defense, and trade. But the situation is still evolving. The framework deal Trump referred to has not been fully explained, and negotiations involving Denmark, Greenland, NATO, and the United States are expected to continue. How this framework turns into a real agreement and what it will mean for Arctic security, economics, and relations with Russia and China remains to be seen. Some economists and analysts say this kind of escalation, then de-escalation, is becoming more common in US foreign policy. Leaders sometimes use tough language or threats as a way to get attention or bargaining power, and then step back once other nations respond strongly. Whether this approach leads to lasting agreements or ongoing cycles of tension is something experts will be watching closely. For now, the immediate impact has been clear. Global markets have stabilized, trade tensions have eased, and conversations about Greenland have shifted from conflict to negotiation. But when it comes to foreign policy and international relations, nothing is ever truly settled. Actions taken today can echo for months or years, especially when they involve important strategic regions and alliances. In the coming days and weeks, we may hear more about the details of this Greenland framework, what commitments have been agreed upon, and how both sides plan to proceed. But today's news marks a noticeable change in direction from a potential tariff fight to a more diplomatic path, and that is why it has become the most significant US news of the moment. This shift shows how quickly international politics can change and how closely economic markets watch political moves. For people watching at home, the key takeaway is that the United States and its allies appear to be stepping back from the brink of a new trade conflict and are instead talking about cooperation on security in the Arctic. That's a big story not only for Americans, but for the entire world.